Hello, YouTube. Welcome. Today we're going to be covering every Sith from weakest to strongest. And the reason I want to do this is because I want to get a little bit of a scope of what exactly each Sith is strong as what. And from there, I am planning to do individual dives on the ones that I find very interesting myself. For now, there's only two. No, there's one character who's already did a dive on another one that I care about, which is the Emperor that was it Raven was after. That's the only one I want to know about as of right now. But hopefully, this gives you more interest in many more other ones that I also like have like feats that I want to know about and that I'll look into. Besides the fact, you know, you're here, you saw it, what we're here for. Let's get right into the video, not make the intro too long. Just get comfortable, get your snacks, get your water, and let's get right into this.
Many legendary and overpowered members over the years, and to be quite honest, there's not a single one that is weak in any real way. You have to imagine these are the main antagonists of pretty much the whole Star Wars franchise, and they just kind of annihilate and go beast mode on literally everybody the entire story, until pretty much the end of whatever arc they're a part of. That being said, there's not a single one you can reference as an anti-feat or a weakling among them. An example, when you refer to someone being downplayed like, oh, Revan is only downplayed to be Maul level, it just doesn't work because even Maul is an absolute beast, and so are many others that people consider.
Isn't this this is Survivor? No, a Jedi Fallen Order, right? And this is Cow, and this is that one dark Jedi, or not Jedi, Sith, or was it Jedi that turned to the Sith? Whatever, right? That you find the mod skins are making it look pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, they look great.
Lower on the list. That being said, we're going to take a similar approach that I did in my Saiyan ranking video, which I heavily recommend if you like Dragon Ball, by the way. And by that, I mean we will be ranking the Sith in general categories or tiers, as Star Wars scaling is very, very contentious. In fact, I'd argue it's the most nerdily debated about thing besides Goku versus debates.
No,
You'll see
I don't feel
forums
like
of
Goku.
people arguing about the same thing for almost a decade straight.
I don't think Goku versus is very nerdy. I think it's just people that are so stuck on their opinions are not willing to do what ifs. There's just, oh, he did this once, and then that means he beats him down flat. It's feel like, I don't know. It is something around with a lot of people on the internet today. They not very open to conversations. They just are very stuck on their ideals, and it kind of make conversations boring half the time.
Writing mini novels back and forth about why this strongest Sith statement is above the other. It's pretty complicated, so I just want to forewarn, by putting someone low on the list, I am by no means disrespecting them because I think every Sith is an absolute savage. Also, I need to clarify that a Sith isn't just some dark-cloaked guy with a red lightsaber, say such as the Inquisitors. Sith are a very particular set of individuals that have reached certain phases of development and recognition. At the end of the day, a Sith is a part of a religion, not just someone who uses the dark side. Example, Asajj, Dooku's apprentice, isn't a Sith because of the rule of 2, which only allows 2 Sith at a time. She's just a dark side assassin with a cool lightsaber. This video will be using Legends canon, not Disney canon post 2014.
Yeah.
So no Kylo Ren.
He's angry. He's
if
angry.
you want a basic idea of what I think Kylo Ren or Snoke are capable of, and etc., you can watch my Darth Vader versus Kylo Ren video in the description. With that out of the way, we can get started. Starting with Class N, we have the Sith Triumvirate from Knights of the Old Republic 2, which is a group of 3 Sith named Traya, Sion, and Nihilus. One thing I would like to clarify is that video game Sith are rather bizarre, as they can be either absurdly powerful on the pecking order, or extremely weak depending on your interpretation. Due to this, I will be presenting both sides of the argument for the video game Sith in particular, so don't jump the gun and get mad about Nihilus's placement quite yet. We'll talk about how you can throw hands higher on the list in just a second. The pecking order for the trio of Sith, though, at least by the end of Knights of the Old Republic 2, should see the restored Traya as stronger than Sion, seeing as she was able to force choke him while he had his saber drawn prepared to kill his former master, with Traya stating around the same time that the power that Nihilus possessed was in a whole other realm above her own. Now, why that exactly places these three in their respective class is a statement made by both Traya herself, as well as the Knights of the Old Republic 2 game director and writer, Chris Avellone, where it is stated that Nihilus at the end of his power progression seen in game was weaker than the ancient Sith Lords, with Naga Sadow being explicitly name-dropped here. However, it should be mentioned that Traya imagined Nihilus to potentially become a threat to the entire galaxy and all life therein via his trademark prowess over Force Drain. This leads into a larger point, with even Chris Avellone stating that when it comes to a matchup such as Nihilus versus Naga Sadow, it's more than a matter of raw power. So considering Nihilus's ability to drain the life from entire planets, rather than his battle power per se with a lightsaber, as showcased in the events of Knights of the Old Republic 2, he could be placed much higher, as shown later in the video, and we'll go over who Nihilus in particular
He's just
can
eating
defeat
planets
with his more special force abilities, despite his weirdly low battle power. In Class M, we have Naga Sadow.
Excuse me, are we just what? Are we just skipping over that he could drain entire planets of their life? I feel like we're skipping over some details here that need to be explored.
And Ludo Kresh. Sadow would naturally be placed above Nihilus in raw power as already presented, with Ludo Kresh being relative to but likely just being below Sadow, since Kresh was the only one of the two to have their blood spilled during their intense sword fight, implying Naga was stronger or a better duelist than him. Something to note is that the Sith Emperor Vitiate at one time feared the spirits of the ancient Sith, with Sadow being named explicitly to be a threat to his power. However, this is an early/weaker variant of Vitiate, and B, the statement refers to multiple Sith spirits being a threat to his power. So it ultimately becomes very muddy and hard to quantify how this statement affects the
I don't know who
scale
this
and
is,
chain.
but alright.
If you take it to the utmost, then obviously the ancient Sith spirits would be a bit higher on the list, which I'll let you guys decide for yourselves.
Okay.
With that being said, we arrive at Class L, populated by Marco Ragnos, Freedon Nadd, and Karnus Murr. Not much is known about Ragnos' power while he was alive, however this Sith spirit is implied to be stronger than either of those found in Class M, with Ludo claiming that Ragnos would crush Naga Sadow in an altercation. Freedon Nadd was as well stated in the fact file number 90 to have become far more powerful than Sadow as well. Karnus Murr is more so a Hax-based fighter or character like Nihilus, seeing as his spirit would simply adopt the power of whoever he can control via his Murr talisman. But to place his actual respective power, he has been compared to Ragnos and Freedon Nadd, being stated to be a powerful Sith Lord in the same vein as the two noted, regardless of his reliance on special and weird abilities. In Class K, we see Exar Kun and Kun-and-Qel-Droma. Exar, with his Sith amulet, was able to completely obliterate the spirit of Freedon Nadd. Seeing as this amulet is standard equipment, it should be valid to consider this his practical combat strength. Ulic then faces Exar Kun in battle for hours on end, with neither opponent gaining an advantage over the other one, with the spirits of old crowning Exar as the Dark Lord, and Ulic claiming apprenticeship under him. Considering this alongside the statement from the Complete Encyclopedia calling Exar the most powerful Sith of all time, and trust me, there's a few of those, he would be above Ulic. In all honesty though, they should probably be pretty interchangeable in terms of strength. There is an argument for at least a version of Exar Kun to be placed much higher, considering one's interpretation, which will be noted further along in the video. But as for now, if you think Exar is a lot stronger, hold your horses, because we will be going over the Exar stronger argument when that comes.
Okay.
We now reach Class J, featuring Darth
Malak and
Darth
Revan. Okay, two people I'm familiar with.
Keep in mind that I'm only taking into consideration these characters scaling while they fit at least a somewhat standard definition of a Sith Lord. Seeing as Revan is a fairly anomalous character, that would be especially important to note. With that in mind, Darth Revan should be fairly above XR Kun, with the new Knights of the Old Republic remake trailer stating he is the greatest Sith in generations, with XR only having died 2 years before Revan's birth. For those wondering, it has been all but stated that the Knights of the Old Republic remake will be set in the Legends timeline by members of the current Star Wars continuity team. Malak should as well be placed in this class for giving Revan a desperate fight. He did lose pretty badly, however, with Revan slicing his jaw off. There is a statement from the Wizards of the Coast website that Malak was far more powerful than XR Kun. It is questionable, however, if this would apply to base Malak, seeing as the article itself implies he is at his current level of power through the Starge Force super weapon, which is basically a bunch of Jedi amping him. Either way, Malak was in control of the Starforge while he was the reigning Sith Lord, so either way, these two should be above the likes of those in Class K. Revan and Malak are characters, like I said earlier, that are those interchangeable Sith video game types that can be much higher based on interpretation, especially considering statements we'll go into soon.
I like the skin mods. They look pretty cool.
Be with those interpretations as the time arises. Another thing about Revan specifically is that when he becomes a Jedi again, he's actually much more powerful, which makes his placement even harder to exactly quantify, since we aren't considering his Jedi progress or amps after he was the Dark Lord. With Class I, things become very subjective, seeing as the characters here originate from the Star Wars The Old Republic MMO, a game with many different campaigns and dialogue options, all determined by player choice.
Okay.
Those characters being the Emperor's Wrath, Darth Nox, and Darth Malgus.
I remember Malgus.
Wrath and Nox
big angry guy that gets kicked out of
the achieve the title of Outlander.
Sith
the
thing.
Outlander is stated to be Vitia's, at the time, greatest opponent. This would, of course, indirectly or directly scale him above Revan, who, during his novel, was shown for the first time channeling both sides of the Force and should be at his strongest up until then, scaling the Outlander above Class J. The fact that the Outlander is considered Vitia's greatest opponent, and Revan is one of Vitia's opponent, yet not.
Valkorion. This is the guy I saw that had the two sons, right? Your birthright is the dirt. Now that your gift, the wars you wage, right? Yeah. Valkorion has lived for millennia, for 10,000 years. How is he 1,000 years? I mean, not 10,000, right? 1,000 years. Millennia is 10,000. 4 millennia? 40? It's either 1,000 or 10,000. I don't remember what a millennia is. I'm not gonna lie. Using his dark mastery of the Force to assume many forms. His latest incarnation is Valkorion. Oh, incarnation. So he dies and comes back. Ah, I see. Emperor's Wrath Nox Malgus. Okay. After ruling for centuries, he was struck down in the act of treachery engineered by his son, Arkan. But the immortal emperor could not be vanquished so easily. He evaded death by infiltrating the mind of the Outlander, his most powerful opponent. He now appears to the Outlander as an apparition, offering guidance and harsh lessons while carrying out the master plan that remains shrouded. He said, alright, I'm dead, that's good, that's fine. I'm just gonna go invade my greatest enemy's mind and then just turn him into my puppet. That's kind of crazy. That's crazy. Honestly, I gotta respect it.
Not the Outlander, would put these said Outlanders as stronger than him more than likely, which is why they're a class above. Malgus is shown being able to harm the Outlander with Force Lightning and Force Push, scaling to either Wrath or to Nox. This is, however, only considering Malgus' scaling as of now, and he could prove more powerful as the Star Wars The Old Republic content comes out and updates him. In Class H, we have the infamous Darth Bane, someone heavily implied to be the Sithari, the Sith answer to the Jedi Chosen One prophecy. Darth Bane would live up to the hype, seeing as he was stated to have garnered a greater mastery of Sith power and knowledge than anyone who had come before him in the Fact File Remake number 22. It should be said that this fact file was released after the Legends Disney canon distinction. However, the creators of the magazine stated that these early issues were written at a time when Legends was still canon, and had to pretty much rework many subsequent issues up to a certain point to accommodate the retcon. This statement would place Bane above anyone preceding him who would fall into what a Sith was defined to up to that point. There is some contention with this, however, as when he initially discovered the holocron of Darth Revan, Bane believed the rituals described to have been performed by the ancient Sith was too dangerous to attempt. However, this was a novice Bane, and not when he's in his peak, with this discovery taking place in the first novel of his trilogy. So coupled with the fact file statement, it would just mean that Bane was intimidated at first by the ancient Sith, but eventually got the hang of it over his decades of training and studies, and surpassed his predecessors. Darth Bane would also create the Rule of Two, which is basically an order to keep the dark side energy in the galaxy focused in two individuals at a time. Whereas when there were numerous Sith in the galaxy, it somewhat diluted this focus and power. The other mechanic behind the Rule of Two is for masters and apprentices to grow stronger and stronger every generation until they could crush the Jedi Order. In Class G, we have the Sith who immediately succeeds Bane.
Okay, I can see how the Rule of Two works and how it would work. The only problem is, what happens if both die? Is it just over? Then again, I mean, we have all the movies, so clearly it didn't happen. So,
in the Rule of Two, that being Darth Zana and Darth Cognis. It's been stated in numerous sources that each generation of Sith, following the line established by Bane, grew in power. It was also noted by Sidious that Bane's actual power was directly transferred from person to person via the Rule of Two, meaning every Sith after Bane in his lineage would be stronger than Bane and stronger than their predecessors as the millennia passes,
it just stacks
until we
on
eventually
stacks.
reach Sidious. Where it becomes debatable is when we factor in Bane's internal scaling. See, Bane was, for a large chunk of his life, plagued with an infection known as the Orbalisk infection, which was stated to both empower his force abilities as well as degrade his physical strength, before removing the infection that had left his physical body worse for wear. So is the Mastery of Sith power statement only relevant to Bane pre-Orbalisk? When comparing Orbalisk Bane against post-Orbalisk removal self, I think it's fair to place his peak at taking place during the later stages of his life. This being based on the fact that in his final fight with his apprentice, Zana, he was stated to be moving faster than she thought possible, on top of Bane attacking her with greater force than he had when he was prior empowered by his Orbalisk Rage Amp. So, Bane would have likely gotten stronger after removing the Orbalisk through years of studying Sith knowledge. Therefore, they would all surpass this Bane, at least in the Rule of Two. That same power in Bane would then be granted to Darth Zana, Bane's apprentice, who ultimately defeated her master, with Darth Cognis being Zana's successor and about 30 other no-name Sith until we get up to Class F with Darth Tenebris.
I've never heard of this man before in my life.
The likes of Zana and Cognis, per the Rule of Two, being 2 spots removed from the last of Bane's successors. In Class E, we have Darth Maul at his peak during the Clone Wars, alongside his brother Savage. It was stated in the Ultimate Duels guidebook that Darth Maul's battle on Tatooine was proof that the Sith were deadlier than ever. This should place his power above the likes of Tenebris, a Sith who had come before him. Keep in mind that this was an injured Maul, who then grows stronger until his peak in Clone Wars Season 5. Maul also has some pretty crazy hype for his time.
Also, I gotta say, Maul is my favorite Sith in canon. In canon, not in Legends. Legends, it changes. But in canon, Maul is my favorite Sith. For sure.
Being stated to be one of the deadliest Sith in the history of the entire order, could beat nearly anyone in unarmed combat, more lethal in battle than the most powerful Jedi, and generally just far more impressive accolades than Tenebris. Savage would as well scale to these statements, seeing as Dooku notes that with training, Savage would rival the Phantom Menace Maul, with a stronger Maul than stated to complete Savage's training, with Dooku then sensing Savage's growing powers. In Class D, we have Darth Plagueis and Count Dooku. Plagueis first goes from considering the ancient Sith, such as Exar Kun, as being far more powerful, to then seeing himself as a peerless Sith throughout all of history. which is backed up by statements found in his novel acknowledging many prior Sith by name. Which places him above Class E is a statement made by Maul during the Clone Wars, which I'll get into soon. Sidious during the Phantom Menace would be—
Isn't it, I used to be the apprentice of the most powerful being in the galaxy? Right? Is that what he's going to bring up? That he quoted that in the Clone Wars?
relative to Plagueis, who is Sidious's original master, seeing as the author of the Plagueis novel implied that he could possibly undermine Sidious in a duel. To undermine someone would typically mean harming them via secrecy, so it's hard to say what this exactly means. However, based on the context, with this being a saber duel, it's likely it would have been something that would at least scale to Sidious. Also, one has to remember that Sidious went out of his way to get his master drunk before trying to take his life, rather than just confronting him head on. With this scaling in mind, Maul noted that this same Sidious was stronger than anyone else he had ever encountered, such as Mother Talzin, someone who could do battle against a Clone War era Darth Sidious, a Sith who could, whenever he wanted, ragdoll both Maul and Savage. Count Dooku would as well fall into this tier of power, seeing as while fatigued, he was able to donate more energy to a Talzin Sidious force clash than the Darth Maul seen in Class E. This is the same class that Nihilus would likely fall into considering his hacks abilities, with top-tier prequel-era Jedi Mace Windu remarking that if Anakin couldn't learn the ability to resist planet-wide force drain that Nihilus had, the entire Republic would be doomed. Meaning Nihilus could be placed all over this list, as it really comes down to who can resist his hacks. And if they can't, then Nihilus wins by default most of the time, and Mace Windu's own words, may have been able to end the Republic if he was—
So basically, he has one big attack that if you can't block it, you're dead. But if you can, then you could maybe beat him. But the bar starts at the being able to defend against this one attack. Okay, I see.
the one that was attacking it, which is why it's hard to place him so concretely. The reason Plagueis is not on the same tier as Sidious later is that Sidious, of course, gets stronger over the years, so Plagueis scaling to a weaker Sidious would not place him on the same tier as Sidious in his prime, or Sidious at his peak. In Class C, we have Starkiller.
Yeah.
While his best feats are—
This is my face. This is my favorite non-canon character. Yes, I know. Generic pick. This is my favorite non-canon character. I love him so much. Okay, all right. He's like really good. I love him.
during a time when he wasn't a Sith apprentice. Do you think I'd really make a Sith video without this guy?
Yeah.
Even though he's not a Sith, I'm just doing this one for fan service.
Thank you.
Starkiller
I
was
love
able
this
to defeat
man.
Darth Vader 1 year before the Battle of Yavin, or the event of A New Hope. This places Starkiller above Class D, seeing as Vader as early as a year after Revenge of the Sith was stated to be far more powerful than someone who was stated to be able to outclass Mace Windu all across the board and was directly compared to Yoda's level of power. Both Mace and Yoda are able to face Sidious in Revenge of the Sith. However, after the time skip, Sidious would be a lot stronger. Even then though, Sidious in Revenge of the Sith, while weaker than his time skip self, should be stronger than any Sith before him via the Rule of Two. Keep in mind, however, that the Vader scene in The Force Unleashed 1 would in no way represent the peak of his power. As well, note that while Starkiller was seen doing battle with Sidious, it didn't seem like it was doing all that much to the Sith Lord, with guides stating that Galen Marek, also known as Starkiller, was no match for Sidious. The Dark Lord tanking a point-blank final explosion containing Starkiller's full power. We could talk about Starkiller's clone, however, he pretty much disassociates with Vader and the Sith almost immediately, so he really isn't in the conversation of most powerful Sith, even kind of being generous and fan-servicey. In Class...
I would say the only difference about the scaling and everything, about the clone and everything, or not even the clone, but him, right? Is that, isn't this guy like what, 20 or 18-ish when you play the first game, right? I don't think he's that old, right? And he just finished his training. So we're technically fighting or using a weaker, well, not weaker, but not peak version of Starkiller is how I think about it a lot. At least in the game lore wise, right? I didn't know there was actually comics. I just know the games, right? So I always considered it like, oh, okay, this is technically not him at his full potential. He could get stronger. I'm not saying he's strong enough to kill them, but he's gonna get stronger in general. So I feel like he could maybe, uh, I'd say get to Darth Vader's level, maybe just under, but I feel like he gets stronger.
B, we have Darth Vader. As represented by his peak of power in Return of the Jedi, Vader is a pretty controversial character to place among certain corners of debate, and it's pretty honestly clear to see why. There seems to be two lanes of thought: the George Lucas camp claiming Vader to be a washed-up, depressed cyborg man with diminished powers when compared to his Jedi self, or he's a force of nature forged through decades of self-actualization, study, and combat. But seeing as this is a Legends video in the actual material of the EU, Vader is depicted as a beast. In the Force Unleashed 2 novel, the Starkiller's clones' battle is fairly one-sided, with Vader dominating the saber duel against this stronger version of Galen Marek, only losing through a combination of being off-guarded and exposed to Force lightning, something showed to interfere with Vader's life support and thus nerfing him. Without the conflict seen in his battle against Luke Skywalker, which further nerfed him, Vader would reach his apex of power in Return of the Jedi. After losing to a possible dark side amped Luke while he himself was conflicted and nerfed, he was able to physically restrain and withstand the full power Force lightning of Darth Sidious post-time skip and at his pretty much peak before Dark Empire, despite being particularly weak to lightning as well, with the reborn Emperor Palpatine noting that Vader did possess the Force strength necessary to kill him all along. Further proof of Vader and Sidious getting stronger over time is how Vader is able to destroy himself from a few years ago or so due to A, various sources saying Old Ben scales to Vader in New Hope, and B, Vader considering Luke in Empire Strikes Back to be above Old Ben and the strongest Jedi, even including Obi-Wan. This Luke being someone he dominates easily while probably conflicted and weakened. If you want Vader to be higher, you'd have to utilize the idea that Sidious says that Vader is strong enough to kill him. However, detractors debate what exactly this means, as well as the fact this would only put Vader in a similar category while he is pretty objectively stated to be weaker.
Yeah,
Sidious
just a burly
only
weaker.
Stronger since this statement in Dark Empire as well. Thus, we get to Sidious ranking in Class A. It should be pretty clear. He's stated numerous times to be the most powerful Sith, if not the most powerful being ever born, period. Through decades of training and preparation.
Well, if we're going by legends, we do have what are the actual god entities that pop out later, like Albabaroth? I don't know what their name is. Alabath? Alabaloth? I don't know. But like, there's like beings made of pure force energy. Like, I don't know how this is a Sith. This is a Sith ranking. Sith ranking. Gods do not count. Sith ranking. I gotta remind myself.
Learning the deepest secrets the Force has to offer. He's become close to a genuine Force entity, existing more so as a being of energy rather than flesh. His knowledge of the dark side runs so deep to its very depths that he can devise entirely new techniques on the fly, harnessing the higher dimensional energies of hyperspace to threaten the entirety of space. He's a real titan, and could very well be placed higher depending how far you believe his statements of being the most powerful Sith extend to, timeline-wise. Based on certain factors, however, such as Luke Skywalker's power progression eclipsing Sidious in terms of raw power, he may very well stop here, though. Valkorion would as well likely fit in this class.
This guy fits all the way here? Oh, that's kind of crazy. And considering this guy is Old Republic, and if he's Old Republic, that makes it even crazy, because this is before the Rule 2. So you're telling me this guy didn't get the boost of every generation being stronger, or he didn't get the boost of unknown knowledge that would have been known at that time later in our time, right? Because we thousands or hundreds, I don't know how far ago the Old Republic is compared to the Empire and everything. Like, there was, like, you know, all those centuries of learning and knowledge being passed down. He had much less than that, and yet he still reached that apex of power. Is crazy. It's actually kind of insane.
Very least be far stronger than the likes of the Spirit of Revan, seeing how pretty much everyone in the galaxy is trying to prevent Revan from reviving Vitiate, knowing they'd all be hopeless if he came back. Valkorion as well has some pretty significant lore that isn't really seen outside of those featured in this tier, being described as a godlike embodiment of the dark side, an accolade he shares with Sidious. Valkorion would as well bypass the Bane supremacy over all Sith before him, as his motivations and identity fall outside of the Sith religion, even ultimately becoming an enemy of the faction in his later forms, justifying his placement above the Rule of Two since he's not a part of it. Narratively, this placement would as well be supported as Vishit was clearly created as an ancient analog of Sidious, both being Sith emperors working from the shadows, sending masked, conflicted thralls to do their bidding. There do exist hushed whispers regarding certain statements directly comparing Valkorion to Sidious, but until those are found, the debate isn't likely to end anytime soon, especially with Sidious possessing statements that he may very well surpass Valkorion if he's Sith or not. As I foreshadowed earlier, the Sith spirit of Exar Kun would as well fall into this class, as Luke considered his power to be just as vast as any he had ever encountered. There's some debate over if Exar Kun was more powerful as a living being or as a Sith spirit, which would change the scaling chain entirely. In fact, it would flip it on its head, with the writer of Exar's comic appearances allegedly stating this spirit that Luke comments on is actually weaker than he was in life. However, he could be referring to the spirit Exar that he wrote, which would be a suppressed being compared to that in his novel appearances. That being someone who had drained various Jedi students until reaching his height of power. But no matter which version you consider, this would be your hypothetical peak Exar would scale to, relative to Dark Empire Sidious. This is as well an alternate placement for Sith Malak and Revan if you consider the statement made regarding a set of miniatures released around 2008, which states that Revan sits along Sidious and Darth Caedus as the most powerful Sith Lords in history. However, this statement contradicts a fair amount of the verse, such as the fact that in Knights of the Old Republic itself, Malak states that Jedi Revan is stronger than he was as a Sith Lord, with Malak still considering himself superior to Revan, even being downright baffled at his loss. So based on this alone, Malak should be among these most powerful Sith Lords in history, but he's absent from the set. This minifigure set also features Sidious in his original trilogy design, alongside Imperial officers who were shown killed in Empire Strikes Back, contradicting the numerous statements of Sidious's peak being in Dark Empire. The statement mostly seems like marketing hype to get you to buy some minifigures, but taking this at face value and ignoring the contradictions, Revan would be at least around Sidious tier, possibly even higher if you think Revan is stronger than Exar Kun, and you take the writer's statement of Exar being stronger in life than his spirit to its maximum interpretation, which would actually make Revan stronger than Sidious and Valkorion, which gets a little bit awkward in debates, but is possible. Class S, the strongest...
I don't know about that. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I will agree with that statement. We'll just move on for now. But for now. But no, I think Valkorion and Sidious are stronger than Revan.
Sith Lords of all time. Most people generally agree with this, although it's Star Wars, so there's always debate to be made. The justification for the placements in this class are they're scaling to basically Luke Skywalker when he's the Grand Master of the Jedi after Sidious is defeated, who was able to, decades prior, while amped by Leia, overpower peak Sidious in Dark Empire. He is then later on stated to be stronger than ever before, including his amped self, which beat Sidious. To start with, we have Darish Vol, who is stated to have much the power of Luke. Hard to exactly place, he would at least be at the bottom of this class.
Okay.
We then have the Dark Lady Lumaya, who during the Legacy of the Force era was able to mortally harm Luke with her light whip, even briefly physically stalemating the bloodlusted Grandmaster. Darth Caedus, who is basically Legends Kylo Ren, puts up a much better fight against an enraged Grandmaster Luke than Lumaya. Darth Krayt, Luke's dark side match, who was able to fight relative to Skywalker against Abeloth, being able to puncture her body.
Abeloth, that's the name. Isn't that like also the name of a Lorecraft entity god, right? Like an old god, right? That exists like outside, or the one that's dreaming all of reality, or all our worlds, right? very and bright. Like everything, it's this thing's what's the name? What's the word? It's this thing's dream, right? And we're all we're all inside its dream. And if it wakes up, all of reality ceases to exist. If I remember right.
Resisting her force blast. Kaitis could be argued above this, however, seeing as Jacen Solo was stated to be the most powerful Sith in the galaxy, with Darth Krayt technically being in the galaxy at the time, albeit in stasis, and finally, Sarasu Talon, a member of the Lost Tribe of the Sith, who, after exposing himself to one half of Abeloth's power source, Abeloth being the mother of the Force, was able to blitz and telekinetically manipulate a prime Luke Skywalker. Anyway, with that out of the way, I hope you guys enjoyed. This video was written by my good pal Crisis, who I'll link down in the description. He saw my Vader versus Kylo video and saw that people wanted to see Legend stuff really bad and not Disney stuff and said, I'm your guy, so we decided to work on this together. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to give him a look if you liked what was said in this video or just want more Star Wars stuff. Until next time.
Alright, that was my reaction to every Sith weakest to strongest ranked. I gotta say, I definitely gotta look into Valkorion. Because I don't know, it intrigues me that he's being the same tier as Sidious, yet being that old in the past is definitely intriguing to me, to say the least. Like, how do you get this strong and not be Sidious, you know? And also that other guy that could just eat planets. I'll probably look into it. Nihilus? I think it was Nihilus. Nihilus, Sidious, and then Bane I'm a little bit more interested in as well. And then I already did a Revan. Thing, so I will not be doing that. Just Nadd's not a right away. That one's already been explored. I'd probably go for at least those three for now. We won't get ahead of ourselves. Just those three for now. But gotta say, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. It has definitely been very interesting, to say the least. And I'll see you guys next time. And bye bye. Stay safe, my lost souls.